Hello and welcome. My name is Karen Kreider and I'm the Program Manager for the Palmetto Able Savings Program with the State Treasurer's Office. I'd like to thank the Project Hope Foundation for allowing me to talk to you today about Palmetto Able Savings Accounts. Today we're going to cover the basics of Palmetto Able. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Federal ABLE Act, but I'd like to spend a few moments talking about how this came to be. ABLE is an acronym for Achieving a Better Life Experience, or ABLE Act, and this began as a kitchen table idea among parents who were members of the North Virginia affiliate of the National Down Syndrome Society. And they were frustrated because while they could save money for their typical children, they were unable to save for the future of their children who would need their help the most due to the $2,000 resource limit for individuals receiving government needs-based benefits, such as SSI and Medicaid. This turned into a 10-year effort, but was finally signed into law in December of 2014. And in doing so, it amended the IRS tax code to add Section 529A accounts. Now, if you're familiar with college savings plans, those are 529 accounts, so ABLE accounts reside in the same section as a tax advantage savings and investment account. And these accounts allow individuals with disabilities to save money. And funds in ABLE accounts can be used on qualified disability expenses, which we'll talk about in a few slides. Now, what is so important about ABLE accounts is that assets in these accounts do not count as a resource for eligibility of needs-based benefits. Now, the other part of the Federal ABLE Act is that it allows states to offer qualified ABLE programs to their citizens. In South Carolina, the Palmetto Able Savings Program was created in response to the federal legislation. Our program opened for enrollment in November of 2017, and I'm happy to tell you today that we have well over 2,000 accounts open statewide. In fact, South Carolina's program has been very fast growing. Now, our program is administered by the Office of the State Treasurer, and this is actually a picture of Treasurer Loftus, who was speaking at Disability Advocacy Day a few years ago, and I work for the State Treasurer's Office. Now, we offer our program to South Carolinians through a partnership with the Ohio Stable Account Program. Ohio was the first program in the country to open for enrollment, and today has the largest and most used ABLE program in the country. Now let's talk about the eligibility requirements to open an account. To begin, the individual must have a disability that occurred or was present prior to the age of 26. And this is a good time to tell you that national advocacy efforts are underway to increase the age of onset of the disability. This is the ABLE Age Adjustment Act, and if passed, this would mean that the age of onset of the disability limit may increase to the age of 46 in the future, which will open these accounts to even more people. Now, in addition to the age requirement, to open a Palmetto ABLE account, the individual must be a resident of South Carolina, and there is no criteria regarding length of residency. Plus, the individual must meet just one of the following criteria. Either be eligible to receive Supplemental Security Income, SSI, or SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance, due to their disability, or have a condition that is listed on the Social Security Administration's Compassionate Allowances Conditions list, or have a medical diagnosis from a licensed physician and self-certify that they are eligible for an account. And again, you don't have to meet all three of these criteria, just one. And it's also important to note that an individual does not have to receive government benefits to be eligible for an ABLE account. These accounts are not income or resource-based. Now let's talk about self-certification. As a parent or individual caring for someone on the autism spectrum, the individual would be eligible to open a Palmetto ABLE account. When you are self-certifying the disability, you are attesting that the individual with the disability has a diagnosis from a medical doctor of a physical or mental impairment that causes marked and severe functional limitations. Now, this is the Social Security Administration's definition of a disability. This would include conditions that you would find in the Social Security Administration's Blue Book, which you can find online. There's a Blue Book for adults, and there's a Blue Book for children. And autism spectrum disorder is included on the list for both children and adults. And on this slide, you will see that I've listed the sections in the Blue Book where you can find information on this. Now, you will also attest that the condition has lasted or will last at least 1 year, and you'll need a written diagnosis, which can be a letter from a physician. Now, you will keep this information at home. We do not require people to send private health information to us. Just put it in a folder with your other Palmetto ABLE paperwork should you ever need it. Now, on this page, we have examples of people who may or may not be eligible to open an account. And since we're talking about autism specifically today, we won't spend a lot of time here, but I will show you some of these examples just so you can see how these accounts work. We have Andy, who was born with Down syndrome. He's 30 years old. Now, he would qualify for a Palmetto ABLE account because he was born with Down syndrome. Next, we have a young man named William, who was a 26-year-old military veteran who was injured just after his 25th birthday. So yes, William would be eligible to open an account because his injury occurred prior to him turning 26. Next, we have Tom, who had a motorcycle accident after his 26th birthday. Now, even though he is an individual with paraplegia, he would not be eligible due to the fact that his injury occurred after his 26th birthday. Now, if the ABLE Age Adjustment Act is passed, then yes, in the future, Tom would be eligible to open an account. And then finally, we have Mary, who had symptoms of a mental health disorder when she was in her teens. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she was 30, and today she's 50 years old. And yes, Mary would be eligible to open a Palmetto ABLE account, and that's because her symptoms were present prior to the age of 26. Now, all of these individuals are made up just to show the range of people that are eligible, but I can tell you over my years of working and making presentations to groups about Palmetto ABLE, I've met people that meet every one of these criteria. And again, I'd like to say that because we are talking about autism, the age of onset for your children or your family member is not a factor since this condition is present at such a young age. Now let's talk about the benefit of account ownership. Perhaps the most important aspect of Palmetto ABLE accounts is that the money saved in an ABLE account does not count as a resource for purposes of benefits eligibility. Now, if you know people that receive benefits, you understand how carefully they have to monitor their financial accounts, because prior to the passage of the Federal ABLE Act, if those people had over $2,000 in assets, they risked loss of health care and other benefits. In fact, you're probably familiar with the term spend down, which is where individuals and their caregivers have to go out and spend money on a regular basis, sometimes on things they don't even need or want, simply to maintain their benefits eligibility. Well, today, and now with an ABLE account, these same people can save well over $2,000 and maintain their benefits eligibility. These accounts are a real game changer in the disability community. And there are other benefits as well. Owning an ABLE account can put the individual on a pathway to financial independence. For many folks, having an ABLE account is the first time in their life that they've been able to have a financial account like this, like you may have or I may have. And these accounts also provide new investment opportunities. And Palmetto ABLE accounts are tax advantaged, meaning no federal or state taxes are paid on the earnings so long as the funds are used on qualified expenses, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And in South Carolina, taxpayers can deduct 100% of the contributions they make into a Palmetto ABLE account from their South Carolina state income tax return. This would be considered a line item deduction from your tax return, and it would be in the same section you would take a deduction for contributing to a 529 account such as Future Scholar. Now, there is something to keep in mind in terms of SSI, and that is account balances over $100,000 do count as a resource. This means if an individual has, for example, $101,000 in their Palmetto ABLE savings account, that the $1,000 over $100,000 counts as a resource for purposes of benefits. And what happens is that when funds in excess of $100,000 in an ABLE account combined with an individual's other financial resources exceeds $2,000, SSI benefits are suspended, but they are not terminated. And it's important to note that Medicaid is never suspended regardless of the balance in a Palmetto ABLE account. Then once the account balance drops below $100,000, benefits resume. Also, there's another stipulation, and that is if money is pulled from an ABLE account to be spent on housing, if those funds are held over from 1 month to the next, then they may count as a resource. So we always tell people, if you're paying rent or your mortgage in June, either take the money from your account in June, or if you pull the funds out in May for a June payment, pay it in May, because landlords and mortgage companies don't mind if you pay early. And finally, if an individual deposits their paycheck or salary into their Palmetto ABLE account, it does not increase the amount of your income. ABLE accounts are not income shields. They are resource shields. Now let's talk a little bit about how you can use money in a Palmetto ABLE account. I can tell you that there is not a single list of items that you can use funds for. This was intentionally written by the IRS to be very broad because everyone's needs are different. So what may be a qualified disability expense for my son may not necessarily be a qualified expense for your child. And again, this is very broad because the IRS wanted people to have the flexibility to use the funds as they needed to improve the health, the independence, and quality of life of the individual with the disability. But let's take a look at some of the broader buckets to give you some ideas. First, you can use money on housing and rent, which would include everything from rent payments, mortgage payments, utilities, home repairs and improvements, home insurance. You can use funds on basic living expenses, and this would be things like food and clothing. If an individual wanted to go to a movie or out to eat, those would be qualified expenses. You can use funds for transportation, and this would include services such as Lyft and Uber, or if you have a vehicle that needs to be modified to accommodate a wheelchair, that's a qualified expense, or if you need to purchase a car. Funds can be used for education. So whether it's for tutoring, tuition to a school, books, things like that, those are all qualified expenses. Assistive technology is a big category, and it would range for everything from like a smartphone, a computer, if someone needed a cochlear implant or a hearing aid or a braille reader, adaptive keyboards, anything you can think of that will, from a technology standpoint, improve the life is a qualified expense, and that would even include a service animal. Health and wellness, of course, to pay for medical expenses, doctor's visits, pharmaceuticals, co-pays, things like that. Financial management, if you have a Palmetto ABLE account set up for your child and you're not sure how you want to invest the funds and you need to speak to a financial manager, funds in your child's Palmetto ABLE account may be used for that kind of advice to set their account up the way that's going to benefit them the most. And legal fees. So if you're setting up a special needs trust, for example, for your child, you could take funds out of a Palmetto ABLE account to pay for those legal expenses. And again, this is just a tip of the iceberg. There are many, many, many more things you can use funds in an ABLE account. Now, if there are qualified expenses, there will be non-qualified expenses. And these are basically things that don't benefit the individual with the disability and would include things like alcohol, tobacco products, gambling, or even giving money as a gift to another individual. These are things that don't improve the health, the well-being, and the quality of life for the individual. Now, if money is spent on non-qualified expenses, there may be consequences. First and foremost, and really the most important part of this is the amount of the expenditure may now be considered a countable resource for determining eligibility for means-tested public benefits. So we always tell people, just use good judgment when you are spending money from an ABLE account. And there are tax penalties. For example, you would pay taxes on the earnings portion of the withdrawal plus a 10% penalty. So if you pulled $1,000 out of a Palmetto ABLE account and $900 of that was a contribution you made into the account and $100 of that was interest, and then used the funds on a non-qualified expense, you would owe taxes on that $100 earnings plus a 10% penalty. Now that won't be as significant as the potential of affecting your benefits eligibility. So again, we just always encourage people to use good judgment. Now let's take a quick look at enrollment, which can be done either by the individual with a disability who is also the beneficiary or an authorized legal representative. Now, currently, the way our program is set up, this can be a parent, a guardian, or someone who has power of attorney for the individual with a disability. I will tell you that the final ABLE regulations were published by the IRS last November. It was November of 2020, and our program is in the process of updating the back end of the enrollment process because now other individuals may also open ABLE accounts for a beneficiary, and this would include people like a grandparent, a sibling, a spouse, other family members, and even rep payees. But again, this is something that's coming, and we should have it in place by the middle of this year. Now, the good news is enrollment is free and it's online. Everything with ABLE accounts is managed online. It's quick and easy. It should take you about 20 minutes to open an account. And I would encourage you, if you're doing this for your child, make sure you have their social security number handy. And if you're going to set it up for automatic bank deposits, make sure you know what their routing number is as well. That's what took me more time than anything when I opened my son's account. And the opening deposit is $50, and that's the minimum. This money does not belong to the state. It belongs to the account beneficiary, but that's what's required to fund the account. And it's important to note that only one ABLE account is allowed per beneficiary. Now, as I mentioned before, it really is a simple process. It should take you about 20 minutes. And when you go through the enrollment process, we're going to ask you a number of questions. And what you'll find is that this is very much like setting up a bank account for online banking. You'll create security questions. We'll ask you to tell us about yourself. Are you the individual with a disability, or are you opening the account for someone else? And if so, what's that relationship? We'll ask you about the basis for eligibility and the disability type. And this is where, if you're self-certifying for autism, that information would go in that section. You'll also have an opportunity to select investment options, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Tell us how you want to make your contributions, and then complete your application. And after that, you will have to fund the account either through ACH or you can mail us a check. And it's important to note that accounts will automatically close in 90 days if they're not funded. And that's because the program manager pays a monthly fee for accounts. So if they're not funded after a period of 90 days, they close it. But all you would have to do if that happens is to call our customer service center, and they will work with you to get the account reactivated. Now let's take a look at our website, which is www.palmettoable.com. This is what our homepage looks like. You'll see at the top of the page in the blue bar we have an Open an Account button, and also an Open an Account button on the left side of the screen. To get started, click that button and then just follow the prompts as you go through the process. Now let's talk about making contributions into a Palmetto ABLE account. Currently, the maximum annual contribution limit is tied to the federal gift tax exclusion and is $15,000 a year. And this is a hard stop, and it is based on a calendar year. Now, if an individual is employed and does not participate in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, they may be able to contribute up to an additional $12,760 a year, which is the federal poverty limit. And finally, contributions are made on a calendar year. In our program, the lifetime contribution limit is $501,000. Now, once you reach that limit, you cannot make further contributions in your account until you spend money from the account and the balance falls below this cap. And while you can't make further contributions, the interest on your account will continue to grow. And it's important to note, too, as convenience, that these accounts are set up to automatically reject excess contributions. So now that your account is set up, how do you put money into your Palmetto ABLE savings account? Fortunately, there are several ways you can do this. You can make contributions using electronic funds transfer, or you can mail in a paper check, and the address to mail the check in is listed in our website. Now, if you have a 529 college savings account for your child or an ABLE account in another state, you can roll those funds into a Palmetto ABLE account. Let me say that with the 529 rollover, you can move up to $15,000 a year into your child's ABLE account. With a rollover from another state's ABLE program, you can roll over the full amount at one time. Now, we also have a great feature called e-gifts. And this allows you to send emails to family and friends asking that they consider making a contribution to your child's ABLE account versus another type of gift for the holidays or birthdays, for example. And what this does, it ensures that the contribution that they make is not counted as a resource for purposes of benefits, should they receive them. And you can also set up your account to make automatic payroll deductions. This way, you're regularly contributing to the Palmetto ABLE account. Now, we do have payroll direct deposit available for Palmetto ABLE accounts, and it's easy to set up. Once the account is open and set up, you would log into your portal and go to the Financial tab and click Payroll Deductions and then follow the prompts. After you complete the form, you would simply take it to your HR department and ask them to process it for you, and we have detailed instructions on this on our website. Next, I'd like to touch briefly on investment options. I will tell you that we have a lot of information on our website about this, so I won't go into a lot of detail here. But we do offer 4 Vanguard Life Strategy mutual funds that you'll find similar to options you may have in a 401k account or a 403b. And these range from more aggressive growth options to income accounts, and each offers a combination of stocks and bonds. And we also offer one principal protected FDIC insured account, which is our bank safe option, and this is insured up to $250,000. And while you won't make much interest here, the money is very safe. And again, please visit our website for details. You will also find that we have a monthly fee on our account that is currently $3.50 per month for Palmetto ABLE, plus a low annual asset-based management fee that ranges from 0.19% to 0.33%. And when you look at our program versus other ABLE programs, you'll find that our rates are among the lowest in the country, which is one of the driving factors behind Treasurer Loftus and our leadership team choosing to partner with the Ohio Stable Account Program. Now let's talk about how you can access funds in a Palmetto ABLE account. First, let me say that withdrawals are free and unlimited. You know that with some bank accounts, you're restricted to the number of times you can take money out on a monthly basis. But that is not the case with Palmetto ABLE. You're able to pull money out when and as you need it. To get your money, you can do one of 3 things. You can either transfer funds from the Palmetto Able account into a personal checking or savings account and then access it through that bank account, or you can have money issued through a third-party check that you would request online when you log into your account, or you can transfer money into the stable load and spend debit card, which we'll talk about on the next slide. One thing that we will never ask is how your funds are spent, nor will our program administrator. But it's possible that benefits agencies or the IRS can, so we always encourage people to keep good records of their expenditures in case they are ever asked for them. This is the stable load and spend debit card, which I mentioned on the previous slide. And this is a great option for our program, and it makes it very easy to access funds. To load the card, you transfer funds online from the Palmetto Able account directly onto the stable card, and it usually takes several days for those funds to move from the account onto the card, so it's good to pre-plan for your expenditures. Now, these cards do not pull funds directly from the account. You can only access the funds that you transfer onto the card, which is a protection. This also means that you will not have any overdraft fees, because if there's not enough money on the card to make a purchase, the purchase will be declined. Also, you cannot use these cards to pull cash from an account, like at an ATM machine or even at the grocery store. And this is a protection for our account owners. Often, individuals that have ABLE accounts may be financially vulnerable. And this is something that I hear from other parents frequently when I speak to groups like this. People are concerned that their children, even their adult children, will be taken advantage of financially. And I feel the same concern with my own son. So with the stable card, you can build in protections. As the account representative for your child, you can request a card for yourself to make expenditures on behalf of your child. For example, mine reads Karen Kreider for the benefit of Matthew. And you can also request a separate card for your child and then load separate balances on each card. And this may be a good way to teach financial responsibility when the time is right. And you can even limit certain merchants. So if you know there are places that you don't want your child spending money, you can restrict those. These cards are very convenient because they will provide you with an automatic record of spending. You can go online and make notations to show how and why the money was spent on qualified expenditures, and this is a convenience for us all. Palmetto Able accounts and special needs trust. Now, this is a topic that we are frequently asked about. People will ask if they have an ABLE account, do they really need a special needs trust for their child? Or if they have a special needs trust already, do they need a Palmetto Able savings account? Well, the answer to this is that we feel these are very complementary resources, and they can work very well together to benefit the individual with a disability. Now, some of the benefits of a special needs trust is that they can accept unlimited cash and assets, while with an ABLE account, you are restricted to the annual contribution limit. The good news, however, is that if you've already set up a special needs trust for your child, you can amend it to allow distributions to their Palmetto Able account. Or if you don't have a trust yet but would like to set one up for your child, you can use the funds in your child's ABLE account to pay for the establishment of their special needs trust. And in that way, in this case, you can set it up to allow future distributions into their Palmetto Able account. Now, some of the benefits of Palmetto Able accounts is that they're very easy to set up and they are free. It only costs $50 to establish a Palmetto Able savings account. That's the minimum opening deposit. And with Palmetto Able accounts, you have more flexibility on expenditures. Plus, you've got potential tax benefits. These accounts are tax advantaged in that you don't pay federal or state taxes on the earnings. Plus, you have the flexibility of using the stable card, the load and spend debit card to access the funds. Now, Medicaid liens or Medicaid recovery, this is another area we are frequently asked about. The bottom line is that funds in an ABLE account are subject to Medicaid payback, but there are some protections. For example, there are limitations. Medicaid payback is only from the date that the ABLE account was opened and Medicaid benefits were received. Overlap is necessary. So if an individual, for example, had Medicaid benefits for 30 years, opened a Palmetto ABLE account and had that account open for 3 years, only that 3-year period during which they received Medicaid benefits and had their Palmetto ABLE account open would be subject to payback. And before Medicaid can request any sort of recovery, there are things you can pay for first. For instance, if someone paid Medicaid buy-in premiums, you can subtract that from the amount due back to Medicaid. And if there are any outstanding bills for qualified disability expenses, those can be paid first from the ABLE account. And if funds are needed to pay for funeral and burial expenses, those may be used first before the funds are available for Medicaid payback. So there are some protections, and funds in ABLE accounts may be better protected from Medicaid payback than in some other types of accounts. Now, upon the death of an account beneficiary, what happens? First off, the authorized legal representative would notify our program administrator of the passing of the beneficiary. And at that point, they can use the funds in the Palmetto ABLE account to pay for outstanding qualified expenses. And that would include funeral and burial. And then, after all the expenses are paid, the account will be frozen. At this point, the remaining funds may be subject to Medicaid lien. Our program administrator will work directly with Medicaid after these expenses are paid and the account has been frozen. After this process is finished, any remaining assets will be distributed according to the individual's last will and testament. There is no automatic designated transfer upon death. And if the individual does not have a will, then the account assets will go through the normal probate process and be treated as part of the estate. And we'd like you to remember that we're here to help. We have great customer service information available. First, I would suggest you visit our website at www.palmettoable.com. All the information we covered here may be found in more detail on our website. If you have questions, please call our customer service center. They're available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the number there is 800-439-1653. I actually call them myself quite often. I want to make sure that I'm correct with information. And sometimes I have questions or am asked questions that I may not know the answer to. So they are a great resource, and I would encourage you to reach out to them. And you can also email us at team@stableaccount.com. Now, I would leave or expect to wait a day or two for a response for email. So if you need immediate help, the quickest and best thing to do is just pick up the phone and call our customer service center. And there is one thing that we ask of you, and that is to please help us spread the message. We have presence on social media. You can find us on Facebook in the Office of State Treasurer Curtis Loftus, and you can follow us on Instagram at SC State Treasurer. We have here one of our social media posts, and this is from Kurt Garrett Jr. He's a young man who lives in Lawrence County and was one of our very early on ABLE account beneficiaries. And what Kirk said was, a Palmetto ABLE savings account levels the playing field, not only for me, but for so many others with disabilities. It allows us to plan and save for the future without penalizing the benefit programs we need to assist us. And I think Kirk said it perfectly in this testimonial he provided for us. Now, this is the conclusion of our presentation today. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. I hope that you will find this information helpful to you and your family. Again, I encourage you to visit our website if you have any questions or just want to get more information. It's palmettoable.com. And please feel free to call our customer service team at 800-439-1653. Thank you again.